GPT-4o is much bigger than you might think. The fact that it's called GPT-4 means nothing. It's a completely different breed of AI, and with this, at a first glance, seemingly subtle release, OpenAI is planning not just to dominate the entire AI industry, but to completely transform the way we use technology today. There is a lot to unpack here, and so far, I have not seen anyone discuss the real implications of this new AI model. So in this video, I will explain why GPT-4o is so huge, 3 ways it will change how we use technology today, and even show you a working example of my own AI agent developed with GPT-4o. Let's dive in. Okay, before we get started, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Arsen and I'm running an AI agency and my own agentic framework built on top of the latest OpenAI Assistance API. With that out of the way, let me first explain why GPT-4o is so huge. It's not due to the multimodality aspect, we'll of course address that later, but the reason GPT-4o is so important is because of the efficiency gains that OpenAI has been able to achieve. Just think about it, it's 2 times cheaper than the previous version, but literally just as good or better. It's 3 times cheaper than Anthropic, and it performs on the exact same level on all of those benchmarks. So I've exclusively used this model since its launch for all my agentic projects, and we've even already transitioned most of our clients on our Agents as a Service subscription to this model. Not a single person has claimed that it was worse in any way. In fact, for many use cases, it was much better. It's much more natural and it's a lot faster to interact with. Now, why is that such a big deal? Well, imagine if OpenAI released something like GPT 4.5 and instead of scoring 90% on certain benchmarks, it scored 95. It would surpass most humans, everyone would be excited because that's better than anything that we've seen before. But the problem is that it wouldn't open up that many new use cases. Currently, in our agency, the most common problem is not that these models are not smart enough. Typically, even if they hallucinate, there's always a way to fight those hallucinations. It just takes some time. However, with a cheaper and a faster model, we now have countless new use cases that previously, just financially or time-wise, didn't make sense. As an AI developer, my greatest hope was that OpenAI would not only progress in creating smarter and larger models, but also in terms of efficiency. That's the real game changer here. Now, the second reason it's so huge is of course because of the multimodality piece. GPT-4o can not only understand text, but also audio and video, and it can even generate all of those things. So now, basically, instead of you having to first convert audio or video into text, it can understand it directly. That sounds pretty insane as it is, but if you think about the implications, it's even more incredible. Because by being able to understand all of those different modalities, this model has now a much broader understanding of the world. So it knows how objects interact with one another. It understands the laws of physics, not just from textbooks, but from real visual examples and audio information. That's why you barely have to explain it anything, unlike the previous version, and it just seems to get it. Additionally, because there is no pre-processing required anymore for those audio or video inputs, it means that we can stream the input as we receive an output simultaneously, which essentially means that we can interact with this model in real time. Honestly, it's not even a language model anymore, it's something different, so I think it's about time that we stop calling these things LLMs. Now, given all of those new advancements, let me now explain the 3 ways how OpenAI plans to use them to change how we use technology today. Recently, one of my clients asked me about the limitations of using something like an agent compared to a standard user interface. I've been thinking a lot about this, and honestly, I don't think there are any limitations. Just think about it. If you have a dashboard on your website with some graphs, you typically look at these graphs in order to extract some insights. Then you typically communicate these insights to your own coworkers using natural language. So the question is, why not just ask the agent for those insights directly, right? The agent will then look at the graph for you, extract the necessary data, and provide you with the exact text that you're looking for so you can just copy it. which is obviously a much better user experience. And the same applies to all of those components like buttons, text fields, input fields, and so on. We've had these elements since the beginning of computing, and we've gotten used to them because we didn't have any other alternatives. But now that we do have an alternative, an agent that can do all of these things for you, we can interact with technology in a more natural way. And this is where the whole field is going. You might have noticed that OpenAI also released a desktop app along with this model. Obviously, this is not a coincidence. This app already has access to your clipboard and to the microphone. So how long until it will be able to view your entire screen? And then how long until it can control your entire computer? So, I think OpenAI is taking the same approach to AI automation as Tesla to self-driving. Tesla didn't rebuild the roads to accommodate self-driving cars, even though that would undoubtedly have made it safer. It simply allowed self-driving cars to operate within our existing infrastructure, because that's obviously much cheaper. Likewise, we already have a ton of software on our own computers that we've developed for ourselves. So now that AI is able to also accomplish all of the same tasks that we do, why not just allow it to use our software instead of building it from scratch? So this is the first way how OpenAI is going to change our technology used today. It will control our software for us. And I will actually show you an example of an agent that can already interact with any website using this model at the end of this video. It is literally able to see the websites and then navigate them like any human would. Secondly, this model will pave the way for new hardware. Some of you might think that after rabbits and humanes failures, it's over for such AI devices. However, keep in mind that there were many attempts to create a smartphone that failed before the iPhone came out. The timing here is everything. So imagine if the humane AI pin could see the world in front of you, hear everything around you, be much faster, cheaper, talk naturally, and have access to all the same apps that you use daily. Even the use cases like maps and navigation, which are probably the hardest ones for such devices, could then be possible, because the model will just look at what's in front of you and then tell you where you need to go. So with those efficiency gains that we talked about earlier, these devices are now becoming more and more feasible. And finally, if this model can hear, speak, and see, and it can also take actions in the real world, what happens when we put it in a physical body? The actions would translate into movements for arms, legs, and other body parts. Because it was trained on video, it already understands the physical world. And because it can continuously generate output as it takes in the input, it will be able to interact with us like any other human would. So it wouldn't be like a pre-programmed thing limited to performing only what it's been designed to do. It will be able to interpret your requests in real time, analyze its surroundings, and then accomplish basically any tasks. And that's the third dimension of how this model is going to change the way we use technology. It will become an operating system for robots and other machines. Now, what does this all mean for you? Well, if you're a business owner, you should definitely consider integrating AI sort of as a central brain into your business. You can hook it up to all the same software that your employees use daily, and that could significantly streamline your operations. If you're running a SaaS platform, an app, or a product, now is the time to consider developing a natural language API. I believe natural language APIs are set to become an absolute necessity for any platforms in the next couple of years. We might even see platforms with no traditional user interfaces at all. Users or businesses will simply hook up your products through these APIs to AI models on their own devices. And finally, if you're an AI developer, you should consider helping those businesses and platforms to connect to one another. You see, even if there is a natural language API, the model still has to be trained and understand how and when to use it. So that's why you can't just connect QuickBooks to an agent. You have to make sure that this agent actually knows when and how to use QuickBooks for that specific process. And this is where the AI agent developers come in. If you want to learn more about AI agent development, make sure to check out my previous video here. Now, let me show you an example of such an agent that can already interact with any website using GPT-4o. Okay, so here is my framework for those who are new here, which essentially allows you to easily build agents using the OpenAI Assistance API. The first step is to simply clone this repo. You can download it as zip or just use this terminal command. Next, open this repo in any IDE that you use, and then here on the left, you will see inside notebooks a web browser agent notebook. So in this video, we're gonna be creating like a web browsing agent that I actually even showcased in one of my previous videos. But the problem with the previous video was that before you couldn't use vision models directly within the Assistance API. This was actually one other release that sort of went unnoticed. A few days before they released GPT-4o, they actually allowed images directly within the Assistance API. This means that now these agents can actually see the websites, because in my previous video, the agent sort of still was blind and was relying like on external tools that would then interpret the image and convert it into text and then tell the agent what's on that image. So now basically we can see the website directly instead of us having to first convert the image into text. So all you have to do to run this is install some additional packages you can run the first cell. I've actually recently switched to Cursor from JetBrains, and that was a bit painful at first, but honestly I'm so glad I did, because how much faster you can code with AI is just incredible. So I definitely recommend for anyone who doesn't know how to code to switch to Cursor. So instead of you like basically typing all the code and commands, we can now just say, you know, please create a virtual environment in Python with Jupyter. So to use that, all you have to do is just click like Command K, and as you can see now it outputs this command which will create the virtual environment and then also activate it and install Jupyter. Yeah, so that's all you have to do. You just have to run this command and then you'll be able to run this notebook. So first run the first cell. I've already done so I'm not gonna do it again. And then run the second cell, and this will pull up like the interface where you can interact with the agent. So I'm just gonna tell it, please open Google. As you can see, another browsing window pops up. So I'm just gonna resize it a bit so you can see both. So then, as you can see, after the agent gets the screenshot, it is able to process the screenshot and actually see what's on the web page with GPT-4v. So now let's just tell it to find myself on LinkedIn. So as you can see, it then tries to perform the search by highlighting the text fields on the website. And then after it receives this screenshot, it is able to type into the correct text field my name and perform the search on Google. Cool, so then it analyzes the screenshot again and asks me which link I would like to click on. Of course, you can also automate these parts by adding like another agent that will just tell it, you know, click on the first link, but I'm just gonna tell it, click on the LinkedIn link for my profile. Cool, so then it highlights like all the buttons on the web page, and then after analyzing the screenshot, it should be able to click on the first link just like that. However, unfortunately, it seems like we do have to sign in. Let's see if it knows what to do next. Yeah, so as you can see, it asks me to sign in to LinkedIn account to proceed further. So what I'm gonna do is now send my LinkedIn credentials to this agent and see if it's gonna be able to sign in. Okay, cool. So as you can see, it now navigated to the sign in screen, which I believe would be impossible if it didn't actually see the web page itself, because, you know, when you analyze like the HTML as text, it's very hard to understand the layout of the website, what to click on. Sometimes the text might be incorrect, but because this agent can actually see the website, it can do something like this by, you know, highlighting all of the text fields, can then input my email and password and then log in for myself into LinkedIn. Awesome, right? Cool, so then as you can see, it tells me that I'm indeed signed in on LinkedIn. That's basically how it works, and you can do so much more actually by adding like your own instructions and additional agents. So let me show you like another example where we will have like two agents and they will communicate with one another to like scrape websites and YouTube videos. Okay, so here in the same notebook I have like another example. Make sure to restart the notebook before running it. Where I'm adding like a report manager agent that will essentially supervise the browsing agent for me, because as you might have seen, I often have to instruct the agent, you know, it like after it navigates to Google, it then asks me like, should I go to LinkedIn page and so on, and obviously the answer is yes, so we need like another agent that will just supervise and do these commands for me. So here basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have like a report manager agent with browsing agent together in the same agency, which is like basically a collection of agents that communicate with one another in my framework. And here basically we have like special instructions for the report manager agent that essentially just tell it to supervise the browsing agent and make sure that, you know, the browsing agent actually completes the entire task. And the task itself is going to be below. Basically right now I'm working on like a referral program for my agency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape all the emails for all YouTube influencers in the AI space. So before I've installed like Chrome Canary, and basically I just transferred all my cookies from my main browser. And now if we run the same browsing agent, it's already going to be signed in. If you're curious on how to accomplish this yourself, make sure to watch my previous video with the browsing agent explanation in more detail. Okay, cool. So now basically I'm just going to send the same instructions. Awesome. So as you can see, we're now signed in as myself, which is exactly what we need. Okay, awesome. So then it opens the next AI channel. Cool, and now it opens the about page again. Yes, so next it clicks on the view email address, and unfortunately there is a CAPTCHA again. But this agent can actually solve CAPTCHAs because it has a special solve CAPTCHA tool, which I also showed in my previous video. So as you can see, the report manager now tells the browsing agent to solve the CAPTCHA, and the browsing agent now successfully solves this CAPTCHA. Amazing, right? So then the email address is now visible, and the browsing agent unfortunately does not want to display it for privacy reasons. Typically you can adjust the prompt for that, but I hope this now gives you an idea of how those agents will be able to interact with our own computers, with software, with browsers that we use on a daily basis on our behalf. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.